Do you want to do the opening?
What?
Do you want to do the opening? You want to say the thing I say at the start of the videos? Do you know what I say at the start of the videos? Do you even watch my videos? Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll do it since apparently our youth correspondent doesn't even watch the videos. Hello, cool cats and kittens. It's Marvel Monday. I'm once again privileged to be joined by nephew Parker, our youth correspondent. I am always Uncle Mad. Today, we're going to talk about Iron Man 2, the second in the Iron Man series. Right, Parker?
Yes.
Cool. And as always, we're going to start off by going into the gist of it. All right, here's the gist of the movie. Tony Stark's Iron Man. He's living high after the first movie, flying around doing his thing. Government's trying to take the Iron Man suit away from him. They want to use it for their own means. He doesn't want to give it to them. There's some weird Russian guy who's pretty much just Mickey Rourke playing himself, but with a Russian accent, who has a vendetta against Iron Man, so he makes his own little sort of Iron Man suit with whips. He attacks Iron Man at a race in Monaco with the whips, but...
Yeah, and then he gets defeated and goes to jail.
He gets defeated and goes to jail, but, as in the first movie, Tony Stark's got a business rival who he's going against, who helps him get out of jail, because he wants to use his brains to defeat Tony Stark. So he gets the Russian guy to help him build his own Iron Man suits. But the Russian guy turns against him. The suits turn against everybody. The whole middle hour of the movie is honestly kind of boring. I think that's where Parker quit, because you only watched, what, like the first part of the movie?
No, I watched half of it.
Yeah, he probably quit when it started to get boring about midway through. Because about midway through, Tony Stark's arc reactor is causing him health problems.
Yeah, because it's a long movie.
Yeah, it is. It's a little too long. So he has to start trying to figure out how to fix his Iron Man suit to where it's not hurting him anymore. He does. Then they have a big battle at the end where it's Tony Stark versus an evil version of Iron Man. Sound familiar? Because this movie is basically almost just like the first one.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, you missed that part. But Iron Man wins. He kisses Pepper Potts.
Yeah, it's like Hulk. He wins at the end.
Yeah, the superheroes usually do. He wins. They keep trying to recruit him to be in the Avengers. He seems resistant to it.
Yeah, but he was already in the Avengers.
No, the Avengers hasn't happened yet. This is before the Avengers.
Yeah, but Black Widow was in it.
Yeah, Black Widow showed up in this movie. This is her first appearance.
Yeah, and the other guy who was the leader.
The other guy who was the leader showed up too, yep. He sure did. Nick Fury. That's what you're talking about, yep. But he couldn't convince Iron Man to join. But Iron Man does join eventually, so I don't know why he was so resistant to it. It doesn't really ever explain why he changed his mind in the series. But we'll get to that when we get to the Avengers. But that's the gist of this movie. So let's go over some notable notes from the movie. All right, so I've got my notable notes that I took while I was watching the movie. Parker, if you think of anything, jump in at any time. Oh, the first note I took is that Mickey Rourke is basically just playing himself, only he uses a Russian accent. So kind of seems like they just let him go crazy and do whatever he wanted to do in this movie. This movie is set 6 months after the events of Iron Man 1. That comes up right at the get-go. Stark Expo, we see this here. It's a concept Tony Stark revives that his father had done back in the 40s. We'll see more of that in the Captain America movie coming up in a few weeks. There's a new Howard Stark in this movie. This movie is played by John Slarity from Mad Men, and there's definitely a bit of a Walt Disney vibe to him when he's explaining what the Stark Expo is. He even looks like Walt Disney with the pencil black mustache and the greasy black hair, so I think they definitely were going for a bit of a Walt Disney vibe with that.
Oh, that was the bad guy.
No, that was the good guy. That's Tony Stark's dad.
Oh.
Good call.
Oh, yeah. Who had all the future stuff.
Yeah.
And he got it.
Yep. Stan Lee makes his traditional cameo, this time playing a variation of Larry King. So there's that. Gary Shandling is in this movie. He plays Senator Stern. He will show back up, surprisingly, later in the Marvel Universe and play a very interesting role.
Who's that?
He's the guy at Washington that's fighting with Tony Stark that wants him to give him the armor for the army. So Tony Stark volunteers to be the Secretary of Defense. That's an interesting note because in the comic books, he actually does become Secretary of Defense at one point in time. Jon Favreau has a scene where he's training Tony Stark to box and fight. And Tony Stark mentions he's trying MMA, which Jon Favreau's character Happy Hogan says he's not a fan of, which is kind of funny because Jon Favreau played an MMA fighter on Friends, famously. Elon Musk has a cameo in this movie, just kind of walking through one scene, and I think he actually said, Tony Stark actually goes, "Oh, hi, Elon Musk." It's very weird. DJ AM, also in this movie, kind of sad seeing him still in there. His passing a few years ago was a tragedy. Also cost me the opportunity to see a Blink-182 concert because it happened right before we were supposed to go see Blink, but we got to see him anyway. RIP DJ AM. There's a lot of references to New Mexico and an incident in the Southwest region in this movie. That's referring to Thor, which stay tuned next week. We'll talk all about that next week with Thor, because that's where the New Mexico incident occurs.
Yeah, I never watched that movie.
You should. It's good. Thor's really good. Thor's better than this movie.
I've seen.
And as I mentioned before, the entire middle to second to third-ish act period of this movie is really boring. I just didn't like it. I thought this was kind of a... after he beats Mickey Rourke's character for the first time, there's about an hour where it's, I don't know, it feels like they didn't know what to do with that hour, so they just kind of made some stuff up and threw some stuff together in that hour. So that part got a little boring. That's probably where you got bored and stopped watching.
After all that, it was still that. I mostly like where he's where Iron Man is all suited up and fighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all the other stuff. Boring.
Yeah. His friend, James Rhodey Rhodes, War Machine, is really dumb in this movie, unnecessarily dumb.
Yeah, and he was in the army.
Yeah, and
dumb.
He keeps giving stuff away to the bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was thinking. He's pretty dumb in this movie.
It's him right there.
Yep, this guy.
Yeah.
Not a good look for him in this movie.
And then he becomes a good guy.
Yeah.
With Iron Man.
I almost wonder, and we'll talk about this in a second, I wonder if they wrote the character to be stupid when they were still planning on it being Terrence Howard, and they wanted to make him look dumb, and then all of a sudden he wasn't in the movie, and all of a sudden it's Don Cheadle who looks dumb, but we'll get that in a second. Captain America's shield makes an appearance in this movie. It's kind of a funny scene where it's in some...
Oh yeah, it's half robot.
Yeah, it's not completely built, and Tony Stark acts like he wants to use it, but he really just uses it to wedge a thing up. So
it doesn't look like the shield.
Mm-hmm.
It's all broken.
It's a tease of things to come of Tony Stark's dad's involvement in the creation of Captain America. So
my most favorite is where he defeats the bad guy at the race place.
Yeah, that's probably the last part you pretty much watched because you got bored and quit.
Yeah.
There's a map in the final scene where Tony Stark and Nick Fury are talking, and if you look closely, it clearly is highlighting some spots that'll become key spots in the Marvel universe. There's a spot highlighting a spot in Africa, which I believe we will learn to become Wakanda. There's a spot in Greenland, which would be where Captain America crashed his plane in World War II. It's Iron Man's glove. There's a spot on the map where the Hulk is rampaging in New York. There's actually video footage from the Hulk's rampage playing in the background of this scene, showing that these two movies kind of occurred simultaneously, the events in them. And there's also one that Marvel has yet to get to, middle of the Atlantic Ocean. There's a random highlighted point. Most people have speculated that's probably referring to Atlantis and Namor, but Namor has never been brought into the MCU up to this point. So the last note I had was the post-credit scene is Phil Coulson coming up to a spot in New Mexico where there's a lot of people gathered around looking at something, and it pans back and it reveals Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, has crashed in New Mexico, leading us into what we'll be talking about next week, Thor.
Yeah.
But before that, we're going to be... What?
Thor 1?
Thor 1, yes. But Thor 1. We have to do Thor 1 before we do Thor 2.
I know.
But before we get to Thor, we're going to go behind the scenes and talk a little bit about what went into making the movie. All right, so a couple little behind the scenes things we looked up and researched. Obviously, the big one that stands out, Terrence Howard played James Rhodes in the first movie, Rhodey, War Machine. In this movie, he's replaced by Don Cheadle. There's various stories, reports about why he was replaced. Some say Marvel tried to cut his pay. He was the highest paid actor in Iron Man 1. He had to take a pay cut so they could afford to pay Robert Downey Jr. more. There's other reports that Jon Favreau didn't enjoy working with him and wanted to replace him just in general terms of working. Who knows the truth, but we've had Don Cheadle in the role ever since from this movie. Mickey Rourke, once again, I'm almost positive he was just playing a version of himself in real life.
And we don't know who he is. That's it.
Yep. Mickey Rourke was actually unhappy when he saw the final cut of the movie that several of his scenes and stuff that he thought gave character development were cut. Now, this is an interesting one. They've kind of retroactively said Peter Parker was in this movie. It's not really officially canon, but it's something that, various people,
That's
including...
my name.
Yeah, your name's Parker, not Peter Parker.
Yeah, but it's just Parker.
Tom Holland said he likes this idea. There's a small kid at the Stark Expo who's in an Iron Man mask that Iron Man helps save, and people have now said, oh, that was Peter Parker visiting the expo as a child.
The bad guy at the race thing, he was trying to be like Iron Man.
Yeah, the bad guy he's referring to is Mickey Rourke's character. It was actually a combination of two characters from the comic books, the Crimson Dynamo and Whiplash.
Because he had the thing.
Yeah, he's got his own version of an arc reactor, which for whatever reason that seems to be a common thing for Iron Man villains.
Power is electric.
Yeah, common thing for Iron Man villains is they're usually just evil versions of Iron Man in one shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah, like in Hulk, at the end it was evil Hulk.
Mm-hmm. There's allusions in this movie that they might adapt the famous comic book story Demon in a Bottle, where Iron Man was an alcoholic. He's got a birthday party scene where he's just drunk and making a fool of himself, but...
Oh yeah, he had a suit.
Yeah, but they never went all the way with that storyline in the movies. Maybe because Disney comes in and buys it later and they wouldn't have liked a story where one of their heroes is a drunk alcoholic.
But some of the parts are bad words.
Yeah, there's some bad words in this one, which you don't see as much once Disney comes in and buys them.
Said bad words also.
Yeah, it's interesting. Once we start getting to the movies that Disney actually made, you will notice there's a little bit less of that type of stuff in those movies.
Yeah.
One other interesting...
Yeah, because Disney doesn't make bad shows, but good shows.
Yeah. Scarlett Johansson wasn't the original choice to play Black Widow. Originally, Emily Blunt was going to play Black Widow, but... Yeah, she was contractually obligated to appear in the movie Gulliver's Travels, which you can talk about stinky breath. Talk about, bad luck, because I don't think anybody even remembers Gulliver's Travels came out, and Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow has been in all these awesome Marvel movies, so unfortunately Emily Blunt missed out on a great opportunity. There's been rumors that she might come back into Marvel in another role, but, we'll see what the future holds. Finally, the last sort of interesting behind-the-scenes note is this movie came out in 2010, a full 2 years after the previous Marvel movie, The Incredible Hulk. That's the longest gap in releases for Marvel movies. You think now, most of the time, they come out, 2 to 3 movies a year, but this one came out a full 2 years after The Incredible Hulk, and I have some thoughts about this. I think, one, I doubt there was originally plans to be an Iron Man 2 in this phase of the universe. I think they probably originally just wanted to do one movie per character and then go right into the Avengers. But the original Iron Man was such a big hit, they probably were like, oh, we got to milk this, we got to make some more money, and rushed out an Iron Man 2, which is probably why this one feels a little disjointed, a little thrown together.
Yeah, and Iron Man in real life is actually rich.
Yeah. And also, it probably took a little bit longer to get this one together and to put this one out, because this is probably where they realized how successful these were going to be.
Is his house in the actual video his real house?
Yes, that is really Iron Man's house.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. But they also probably took a little extra time to get this one together, because this is where they were starting to actually make the full roadmap of where the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going to go.
Things in their garage are not real.
Yeah, the whole movie's real. It's a documentary.
So Iron Man's suit is real?
Yeah.
So he can really fly?
Well, yeah. You saw the movie. Did you not see him fly? That's all we got for our behind-the-scenes stuff on making the movie. Last thing we have to do is lead you into what's coming up next. The next movie that we're going to be doing on our next Marvel movie.
That already.
I got to do it up. This is how you wrap up videos. Trust me, I'm a professional at this. We're going to be continued when we come back next week on our next Marvel Monday. We're going to talk about Thor. Not Thor 2, not Thor 3, Thor 1, because you got to do these in order. And Thor 1 comes before Thor. Exactly. Parker watched the Toy Stories all out of order. He's crazy. But we're going to watch Thor, the first Thor, the one where he bleached his eyebrows blonde and looked stupid, but otherwise the movie's pretty good. You'll see it when you watch it. So, if you're looking for something to do over the next week,
Thor is kind kind of stupid.
You're stupid.
You're stupider.
You're stupidest. Can't beat that. Next week, Thor. Watch it, catch up. We'll see you next time on Marvel Monday.
Now shut up.
What's up, cool cats and kittens? I hope you enjoyed today's video. I didn't do the normal ending right there at the end because originally I was planning to do something a little extra on today's video, but we had some unique circumstances that changed my plans. You'll get to find out more about that in a video that's going to come out later this week, so stay tuned for that. But hope you liked today's video. It's always fun to have Nephew Parker stop by to help us out, so give us a thumbs up down below. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that so that you don't miss any videos. And to make double sure you don't miss any videos, make sure you hit the bell and mark to receive all notifications. And if you have any comments, leave those down below too. Make sure sometime between now and next Monday you watch Thor so that you're all caught up for next week's Marvel Monday. And just don't stand so close to me. That's all.